So Kautilya Nishant is a DBA student at Westcliff University, majoring in information technology and management, currently pursuing a dissertation on transformation in working culture among teaching professionals. Kautilya aims to bridge the gap between AI advancements and effective teaching methods to enhance student engagement and performance. And here we have his presentation on generative AI and student performance, educators' perspectives, and insights. The floor is yours.
Awesome. Let me know if you guys see my screen.
Yes, we see it.
Okay, perfect. So, hey everyone. I believe Dr. Sarah Gray has already introduced, but I'll just take a moment to give a brief introduction. I'm working as a product manager for an IT consulting firm, and I'm in my final year of DBA. Currently working on my thesis, which also focuses on transformation in working culture among teaching professionals post-pandemic. Since I'm working in the industry and through my classroom teachings, I was very intrigued with the rise of generative AI. I am already focusing on education sector through my thesis, and I became interested in learning more about how educators perceive this technology is going to impact student performance. Hence, here I am presenting a research proposal on this topic. The research is currently in its early stages. I have reviewed some literature, set some objectives, planned the methodology. My next steps is going to be designing the data collection tools, such as interviews and surveys. This is a brief agenda that I will be covering through the presentation today. It starts from generative AI, what is its role in education, the gaps in current research, the proposed research topic that I have, some objectives, research questions, followed by the hypothesis and proposed research methodology, and the research roadmap that I'll be covering to complete the research, and some expected challenges and contributions that I hope to achieve. So generative AI has been hailed as the next frontier in technology for a lot of industries, starting from tech to banking, all the way spanning to education. It is already being used for tasks such as content creation, data analysis, and has widespread implications in future work. JP Morgan does estimate that generative AI could increase the global GDP by 7 to 10 trillion dollars. And when we're talking about education sector, there is an ongoing debate whether the risks outweigh the opportunities, or is it the other way around? But it's for sure that some education companies are using it to increase their revenue and lower their costs. Morgan Stanley on this, and since we're talking about education sector, Morgan Stanley estimates that generative AI could bring in $200 billion in value to the global education sector by 2025. So what is generative AI? It refers to AI systems capable of creating content that closely resembles what humans might be able to produce, such as images, codes, text, language, music, everything. When we look at the broader picture on how these all relate together, we are looking at AI, machine learning, deep learning, and generative AI. Generative AI being the smallest subset of the broader AI, artificial intelligence. When we look at AI, it's a broader category. It encompasses everything that enables machines to think and emulate the human behavior and intelligence. The subset of AI is ML, the machine learning, which is used to detect patterns in large data sets, and it's generally using supervised or unsupervised learning techniques, depending on whether you are feeding in labeled data or unlabeled data. The subset of machine learning then is the deep learning. Deep learning essentially uses or simulates the human brain and how the neurons work to examine and analyze complex data. And then the last subset of this is the generative AI, which is the innermost circle and subset of deep learning. It's used to train models to create new content.
Um, Kautilya, are your slides advancing? We're not seeing the slides moving forward.
Is it? Uh, do I stop sharing once again? Give me one second. Can you see it now?
Yeah, we see a different slide.
Is it the generative AI slide that we are all looking at?
Yeah, with a circle in the middle.
That's correct. Yeah. Okay, perfect. I just changed the slide Can you see the new slide which says generative AI in education?
No, we're still on the same slide.
Hmm. Can you see it now?
Yes, now we see AI in education.
Okay, perfect. Uh, yeah. Do you want me to just go back the previous slide, or is it fine if I just continue from here on?
It's completely up to you. I can add a minute to your time, but
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll just take a moment to, just go to the previous slide. Again, going back to the generative AI slide, the diagram I used and I was trying to explain initially was to relate how AI, machine learning, deep learning, and generative AI are all related, and explaining that AI is the broadest subset, and which is followed by machine learning, then deep learning, and generative AI, which is the smallest subset of all three. Generative AI is what my topic is concerned about, and what it talks about is how it's used today to analyze complex data as well as to generate content. Um, then now we're talking about generative AI in education. Generative AI tools are becoming increasingly relevant today, and a lot of us have seen student-focused tools that are used today, which is like ChatGPT. But we also are aware that there are tools focused more on the educators, which is one of the tools is called Quillians, and the other is the platform called Khanmigo. So Quillian is used today by the educators to generate quizzes and assessments from the materials that the educators might provide to the system, which is helping them save a lot of time in the content creation process. And Khan Migo is a platform developed by Khan Academy, which is unique in its own way. It acts as an AI tutor that gives students personalized feedback and learning suggestions in real time. The point being that generative AI tools are not only, relative to content creation space, but also helping a lot in the education sector. Uh, Now, when I was doing my literature survey review, I noticed a couple of gaps in the current research. Uh, while the integration of AI in education is widely discussed, there are four major gaps that I identified. First one is the that most existing studies focus today on AI's potential from a student-centric viewpoint. There is a lack of comprehensive study that captures how educators feel about AI in their classrooms. Now, educators' perspectives are vital because they are the ones who are integrating these tools in their teaching practices. The second gap that I observed was the lack of focus on teaching methodologies. A lot of research has been done on advancements in AI tools. There has been little examination on how these tools are actually impacting the teaching methodology, and bridging the gap on how educators use these. The question arising that are educators finding AI to be complementing their teaching methods, or is it disrupting? The third gap that I identified was since most research only captures the short-term effects on student performance. This is also because generative AI is relatively new, and we have not gathered enough data to see the long-term impact of how it is going to impact students solving problem capabilities, and impacting their academic performance. The last gap in the research is that I identified was that the lack of research on ethical concerns such as academic integrity. We know that tools like ChatGPT make it easy for students to generate content, raising questions about plagiarism and originality. Even, we have been made aware about the best practices while studying at Westcliff. But how concerned are the educators about this? Like, is it a major blocker for them? Or, what are the implications for the future assessments, since we know today that, AI cannot be denied. It is there and it is going to prevail. So how do we, adapt around AI? So this is my proposed research, an exploratory sequential design study on generative AI and student performance from an educator's perspective on the use of AI tools. This is a longer title compared to the brief one that we saw in the initial of the presentation. There are certain parts to it. It's called exploratory sequential because I want to start with the qualitative approach, learning more about the personal experiences of the educators, and then move to the quantitative side, which is the mixed methodology. I'll be covering more on it in the later slides. Uh, so through the proposed research, I would want to explore four key objectives. First is, investigating educators' view on the use of generative AI tools by students, understanding their perception, concerns, experiences, essentially capturing the real world impact that these tools would bring in the classroom from the educator's viewpoint. The second objective is going to be the identifying the key AI tools and applications currently being utilized in the educational setting. We are not only looking at AI in a broad sense, but trying to pinpoint specific tools and examining how are they applied across various teaching and learning contexts. The third objective, part of the research is evaluating the impact of AI on student engagement, their behaviors, and their overall performance. So, using a lot of AI tools and relying heavily on them could, measure, it would bring in shift in motivation of students and, influence their way of interacting in classroom dynamics and the broader learning environment. And the fourth and the final objective is assessing the impacts, whether it's positive or negative, of AI integration. Uh, Perceived advantages could include enhanced student engagement because AI allows us to personalize learning experiences student by student to cater their individual needs, but also identifying the potential challenges. There could be risks about student becoming overly reliant on AI and also related to academic integrity when students start using completely AI generated content without their own compass. So for this proposed research, I've identified three research questions. The first one is, what is the educator's perception regarding the use of generative AI tools? Do they view AI as a valuable supplement or to their teaching methods, or do they have concerns about how AI might disrupt the traditional education system? Second question, what are the perceived benefits and challenges of integrating AI into teaching learning processes? While AI offers certain advantages like personalized learning, it could also lead to academic, integrity issues and, student become relying on these tools. And the third question is, how does the use of AI impact student engagement, behavior, and academic performance? Does AI encourage students to become more active while the learning journey progresses, or is it diminishing their critical thinking ability and also, impacting their creativity? So they're just, consuming whatever someone else is generating for them. Uh, for the research questions, there are three sets of hypotheses that will guide this research design. The research aims to, test these hypotheses over time to understand, the impact of AI on the modern educational environment. So the first set of hypotheses is, trying to understand whether the educators perceive significant impact or no significant impact of using generative AI on their teaching methods. The second hypothesis will be that AI integration has no significant effect of student engagement, learning behaviors, and compared to the traditional methods. And the alternate for this will be AI students or AI tools will lead to significant increase in the student engagement. The third or the last hypothesis is there is no difference in student outcome, and whether there's AI equipped classrooms will show significant improvement. Again, moving to the proposed methodology, I am preferring to use exploratory sequential mixed methods design, which means that the research will start with the qualitative phase, gathering in-depth interviews of educators and trying to understand their personal experiences. These interviews will allow to develop educators' perspective, providing rich content, narrative data that could be the foundation of the study. This will be followed by the quantitative phase where surveys will be distributed to the broader sample. This would allow to quantify the relationship between the usage of AI tools and various aspects of student performance, such as engagement and grades. And the third piece will be employing the mixed method approach, which is integrating the results of both qualitative and quantitative data. By combining these two approaches, it will give a more holistic picture on the trends that were observed from the interviews and then backing them up with the quantitative data that is found in the quantitative surveys. This is the research roadmap. A brief overview of this research from end to end could span over 10 months, starting from doing the literature reviews to identifying the research gaps, and then following the qualitative data collection, then quantitative, and then collecting and analyzing the data. The last penultimate step will be preparing the findings, including the research papers and everything, to make sure that the insights gained could be widely shared and applied in the field. And last will be the research completion. The expected challenges and limitations, there could be multiple, but the three highlights will be the data collection could be difficult when we are conducting this research, since the access to representative sample of educators could vary across education levels. Some education systems in the rural areas or underfunded schools might not have access to AI as much as schools which are heavy on the technology side. The second could be the limitations of AI tools themselves. There are tools which could be very useful in certain sectors of STEM courses, whereas they will might not be as effective as in the other courses. So this could be a limitation while conducting the research. The third is the issue of technology. Again, not all schools have the same level of access to AI, so there could be a access to technology disparity, which has to be considered while conducting the research. And finally, the expected contribution that we are hoping to achieve through this uh, proposed research. For educators, it will give them an insight on how they perceive generative AI in the classroom. For the policymakers, it will help them to decide more on policies regarding the ethical usage of AI and then issues of academic integrity. And for society as a whole, the findings will help fund the future of teaching and learning by understanding how AI impacts student engagement and how the AI tools are identified. The study would definitely aim to ensure that AI serves as a tool for enhancing personalized learning while maintaining the central role of teachers in the education and not aiming to replace them as a whole. So yeah, this covers the content that I had planned for the proposed research. Thank you so much, and this is followed by some references that I had.
All right. Well, thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you so much.
Before we get started, moving into the Q&A section, I do want to go ahead and share with you, with any students who are attending, the link for extra credit. So there you have it. At this point, I'm sure you know what that is for. It is all fantastic and working. I'm starting to see questions popping up in the chat. So let's go ahead and get started. We have our first question here. You mentioned that the underfunded schools could be a challenge. Are you planning on taking teacher surveys from all over California or also from other countries?
I would probably try to conduct the surveys in my home country, which is India, and I would also try to limit it to certain either tier one or tier two cities and not spanning over the entire country because that will be a huge geography to cover, and the data could to make sure that I am able to complete the research on time. I'll probably start with the tier one or tier two cities as a target, and then only try to expand in the future version of the research.
All right. I have a question for you.
Mhm.
Um, as a, I mean, I'm sure many of us here in your audience are professors, teachers, etc. So I was wondering, of course, we all assume and we hear that, oh, well, nobody really needs to do any research on why, what educators' perspectives are on AI because we all just know they hate it, right? Or on the other hand of it, because it's so new, no one's had time to do the research. So why, besides those two perspectives, do you think that there's so little research on educators' perspectives on AI in the classroom?
I think the prominent market or like the prominent consumer of AI that we have seen so far has been the student-facing community. Uh, and I can vouch this because I'm also pursuing my DBA, even though I'm working in the industry and we encounter generative AI time and again. But the way industry sees generative AI is very different than how the educational system sees it. And that's what raised my curiosity because lately I personally observed that earlier we used to have Turnitin reports whenever we would submit the assignments, and they would only consider the plagiarism, which was fine. Then Turnitin introduced the Turnitin AI detection, and I had several discussions with a couple of professors that I'm taking classes with and trying to understand their viewpoint. And some of them do actually believe that it's not like a countermeasure to the students, but they have to follow the policy with the universities. And then it becomes a question about which university likes to follow which approach. I know there are a lot of universities who have completely discarded Turnitin AI detection because they know it's not foolproof. There is no way to actually detect AI by some universities. And then there are some universities who believe that, that's a way to discard or to promote students working on their own assignments and not completely relying on AI. So that's a very gray area. And that is what intrigued me to, learn more about it and why educators will have a different perspective than, what students have. And I hope that I answered your question.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. All right, we have another question coming to us from the audience. Um, let's see. First one, have you also considered taking into account the perspectives of students and what they feel about teachers using AI?
Yeah, that has been a very interesting topic and not yet. That could be something that I would explore further. But since I'm already on the student side without, uh, poking the bear and trying to, accuse that, why professors use it. I do want to understand their viewpoint first because, we are following a system where it's passed down from top to bottom. So I first want to understand why they are in favor or are they not in favor of generative AI or chat GPT or, Google Llama or whatever models you can call out. And maybe the next phase will be focusing on students' perspectives because it's very easy to gather student perspective because everyone will probably support because of the bias. I do want to explore something that is unbiased.
Absolutely. All right, another question. Why doesn't the education system accept the generative AI concept? As a tutor, nobody wants students to take help from ChatGPT.
That's something that, I will let the university decide. I cannot call for it, but I do agree. In my workspace and as a product manager, we definitely, rely on ChatGPT for the creative thoughts. We do have to work through it. The only issue that I personally feel as a student is that, uh, there are tools which would tag your work as AI generated just because you follow a simple template.
Mm.
And it's very easy to, even if you're not using AI, you can be called out for using AI. So that's a very thin line. And I do want to propagate that the student education system should not penalize, but that's my personal take. As a researcher, I cannot rely on my opinions. I have to do a broader survey to
Yeah.
come up to a conclusion.
All right. We have one more question from the general chat, and then we'll open it up to the panel as well. Have you considered also suggesting adding ChatGPT as one reference for student assignments?
When I'll be a professor, I'll definitely add that, but I'm not. If I do add it, I might get penalized.
Awesome. Wonderful. Um, AI detector and assignments are addressed for. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Panelists, do you have any questions or comments that you'd like to make?
I do, but I saw Dr. Kitty. I guess, do you have a question? You raised your hand before me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Professor. Um, Kautilya, I was wondering about something. Do you think that the AI will be more helpful to special education than for general education? Because I think that general education is misused. It's like you mentioned, the students use for answer the question of exam. They do dissertation with the ChatGPT. They do paper with the ChatGPT. It's really very lazy from my standpoint of view. So I think that that would be better for special education because that helps the kids. It's different approach. Do you think that will be more helpful?
I definitely agree because it depends on whether you are competing in a certain space or not. When we talk about special education or when the way I understand is like kids with special needs, they are not competing with each other. They are not like fighting for grades. So in those departments, it would definitely help. I also believe that there is a very thin line on how much are you relying on ChatGPT. You can definitely write your dissertation using ChatGPT, but when you present or when people will ask you questions, it will be very obvious that you have no idea what you're talking about. Because all the thought process, all the imaginary or the creative work will have been done by ChatGPT compared to someone who has not done it. So it can only take you so far. As a product manager, when I'm doing my brainstorming sessions with ChatGPT or any other generative AI tool, my goal is not to give away my thought process, my goal is to, get more bullet points, try to brainstorm. Like, I would assign it as a fellow product manager or a customer of a pain point, right? And I'll try to interview with them that, hey, what are your pain points? Just to understand how they are thinking. It's like, can you talk to your friend if they are, having a similar skill set? So whether you have a industry where you want to use it or not, it depends on how much are you relying on it. If you are relying on it only for, brainstorming, it should definitely enhance your output compared to if you're just blind spottedly, relying on the ChatGPT outputs. And we all know that ChatGPT hallucinates a lot. So it's definitely not the ideal solution to rely on.
Okay, so yes, Gemini, Siri, all those things are training models right now. So
Right.
thank you so much.
Dr. Gay, do we have time to ask one more question? Okay. Hey,
Yeah.
Kautilya. No?
Yes, we do. I'm basically the break that I would take to like switch between presentations. I'm just going to go straight to the next one.
All right, thank you. Hi, Kautilya. Good to see you again here. You talked about the gaps in the current research in slide number 4, limited understanding of educators' perspective, academic integrity, and all those 4 points. The question is, during your reading through the literature review and research and articles and all that thing, did you come up to a challenge, or what are the main and any challenges of integrating AI in education?
So, Professor, the fact that there is a limited research from the educator's perspective, whatever I would find is from the student's perspective, or the articles that I found were more about, hey, how much these tools are evolving, what are the benefits of these tools. They do not specifically talk about integrating these tools in the education sector, and what are the broader impacts or the pain points that the professors or the educators feel. So that was the gap that I identified. Broadly speaking, right? And I believe that the educator's perspective is very vital, because these are the people who are going to integrate these tools. These are the, you can call it like, frontline workers in any industry, right? So they are interacting with the students who are relying on ChatGPT. So what are they actually feeling, right? Are they actually getting challenged by these issues, or are they actually feeling that, is it raising the bar of the quality of discussions that could happen in the classroom?
It'd be interesting to find your findings, maybe, from the participants, maybe one of the, especially since you're doing the qualitative and quantitative. From the qualitative, the theme is maybe a need in adequate training for the educators and other things that you're going to find through the themes.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Good topic. Thank you so much, Kautilya, for sharing that with us. Excellent. Good luck.
Thank you.